years, and I hope I'll be able to continue in that vein. Today we have with us the Waste Warriors from St Vincent's Primary School in East Kilbride, who will be speaking on at item 3, along with Anne Goldie. So from the primary school, we've got Mr McKenna, we have 4 pupils, Ibrahim Mahmood, Ellie Parker, Sanda Jakani, and Ellie Scott. Apologies if I've mispronounced any of your names. So without further ado, we'll move to the first item on the agenda, and that is declaration of interests. Are there any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Okay, so on to item 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. As I was not part of the committee at that point, I'll hand over to the Deputy Chair, Kirsten.
Thank you. I've approved them as a correct record. Can I ask for a seconder for other people who were at the meeting? I think Julia Mars has put her hand up.
Thank you. Yes, I would second the minutes. I also have a matter arising, with your indulgence, Chair.
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. On page 6 of the minutes, it says that in terms of whether the full environmental tonnage of private vehicles travelling to and from schools and following on from the school transportation changes could be monitored, it's noted that the Exec Director of Community and Enterprise stated that consideration would be given to measurement. Also, that the head of roads would consider if the Hands Up survey, which details how children get to school, could be expanded to detail private vehicle journeys. Can I ask what work has been done so far in terms of the considerations noted, and if a report could be brought to the next Climate Change Committee?
Yes, I'll ask Lynn Sherry to speak to that, please.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much. Morning, everyone. Just to answer your question, Councillor Mars, yeah, we have had a couple of meetings. I've had a couple of meetings with officers from Community and Enterprise Resources just to get their advice about how we might approach this, and they kindly helped us arrange a meeting with an external company to talk that through in a bit more detail as well. It's in terms of kind of 2 things: assessing the sort of potential carbon, and that involves gathering certain elements of data. Some of it will be assumptions. So we talked around perhaps doing different models of what potentially could happen in terms of parents, families, children deciding how they might arrange for transportation to school, whether it's by foot, by other active travel, or by sustainable travel means, or by personal car. So we're looking into that further. We are aware that we would need to have to do some data collection also with the bus operators currently with SPT, because our contracts are based on just the number of seats that we need available, and beyond seat belts there isn't much we do in terms of requesting and holding information about which actual vehicles they use. So there'd be a piece of work involved in that as well, to gather sort of core data so that we could start that. So a bit of a transport analysis, a bit of, I suppose, scenario setting about carbon emissions and what likely transport modes might be moving forwards, a look at air quality impact and some of the mitigating strategies that we're looking to bring into place. If we move forward with that, then we're looking at doing sort of going out to quotes, get 3 quotes in from external agencies that could support us with this, and then to work through some of the data with SPT, maybe with officers with Community and Enterprise who can assist as well, and then also with schools, parents and families. This will take a bit of time. We haven't bottomed out exactly the details of all of this and how long this may take, but we could bring it back to a further committee. I believe there's one in December, and I don't think it would be possible. I think the next one is December. I don't think the time frame would allow for that, but perhaps a subsequent one following that once we get into spring.
Okay. Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Mars? Does that answer your question, Councillor Mars?
Yes, I think it does. I lost, well, I had poor connection through part of that. I think I might have caught that the next Climate Change Committee would be in December, but it wouldn't be possible before that, but that a future report will be coming, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, thanks.
Okay. Has anybody else got any? Right. Councillor Equity.
Thanks, Norman. It was on Julia's point, and it was just to clarify that it was that basically I was going to second her proposal to make sure that, yes, understood we wouldn't want to put the officers under pressure for December, but it was to make sure that it was actually like noted that it was agreed that that report would then come back at the next meeting after that. So it was to make sure formally that that was going to happen, because I think that's important.
I think if it's possible to do that, then we'll work to do that, to bring that not to December, but the subsequent one after that.
Does that satisfy your point, Councillor Equity?
Chair, as long as that's been agreed and I don't need to second it for it to happen, then yes, I'm happy for it to be not the next committee, but the committee after that.
I don't think it was an actual formal motion by Councillor Mars that required seconded, but I think the officers are confident that they can bring that report forward at that point. Is that? Yeah. Okay. Any other?
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions, comments on the minutes? Councillor Mars again.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really happy to move a formal motion if required, so that we can be very, very sure that the report will come to the committee after next.
I think since it's been agreed to by the officer, there's no requirement for a formal motion. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay. We will move on then to item 3 in the agenda, which is an item for noting, and this is on the food waste projects. So I'll invite Anne Goldie to introduce the report, and then she will hand over to Mr. McKenna, the principal teacher, who will take the committee through the presentation of the Waste Warriors programme with a question and answer with the pupils.
Apologies. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. The purpose of the report is to provide an update on the work undertaken to reduce food waste within facility services. And one of the exciting projects is our Waste Warrior programme. And I have the pleasure this morning of introducing and bringing along our Waste Warriors from St Vincent's Primary School in East Kilbride. They're going to take you through a very short presentation in the form of a question and answer to tell you about this great programme. So thank you, Chair, for introducing each of our Primary 6 pupils. So I'll now pass to Mr. McKenna for the next presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity for our kids to come along and speak to you today. It's a great privilege for the children to experience this live action democracy, so they're very much looking forward to it. Just to give you a very brief background, we at St Vincent's were involved in some kind of support with the kitchen staff to begin with, and our head teacher, her bugbear, if you like, was waste food, and we were very much wanting to be involved in this. So when Anne and Isabel came along to ask us to be involved, we were very much keen to support it. In order to present it to you today, I'm just going to ask the children who are heavily involved from last year and also this year. They're the ones who do the hard work. They're the ones who delegate. They're the ones who speak to the younger children. So I'm just going to ask them the question and they can tell you their answers. They do have documents in front of them to help them in case they get a bit nervous or they forget. So are you ready? Okay. So we'll start off with Ellie Scott. So Ellie, I just said briefly, before Waste Warriors came to us at St Vincent's, we were kind of supporting the kitchen staff, and you were clearing trays, we were segregating cutlery from the waste food and the wrappers. But what was the main concern that we noticed in our school when we were at the beginning of Waste Warriors?
We noticed that there was a lot of food being thrown away, especially from the younger children in the infant department.
Okay. And our head teacher, Mrs Tompkins, who you know very well, was contacted by Isabel and Anne and asked us to join the initiative which focused on food waste within the dinner schools, and we're happy to participate. What did we want to be part, or why did we want to be part of the Waste Warriors initiative?
One of our eco-committee topics was waste, and we knew that our school was wasting too much food. We knew that a campaign to highlight this problem would help our journey towards our green flag goals.
Okay, and your last question, Ellie, how did we plan for the Waste Warriors initiative to run within our school?
We decided to ask primary 6 pupils to run the initiative, as it also gave primary 6 children responsibilities as senior pupils. We also knew that primary 7s had monitoring duties, and therefore they would be unavailable on wet days.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Okay, we're going to move on to Ibrahim. You ready, Ibrahim? Okay.
Yes.
So what did the role of a Waste Warrior involve?
When the initiative started, we arranged for groups of 4 children from primary 6 to take on the role of waste warriors each day. Our task was to wear high-vis vests and to help clear the food trays of waste food. At the end of lunch, we would weigh the bag of waste food and record our observations, such as what type of food was being pushed into the waste bin.
And what did we notice very early on in the initiative?
We were shocked at how much food was being wasted. We also noticed that many children were ordering food that they didn't like, or that certain items of food were perhaps too much for some of the younger children, such as the big hot dog rolls.
Okay, so what did we decide to do to help the school to reduce the amount of food being wasted?
We decided that we should visit every class to explain why we were waste warriors and to explain what our purpose was, as most of the children thought though we were just helping to clear the dining hall.
Okay, good lad. Okay, so we're going to move on to Ellie, the other Ellie Parker. Ellie, what did you say when you visited the younger children and also some of the older children when you went around the school?
Firstly, we highlighted the high amount of food that our school was wasting and how that had a negative impact on the environment. Next, we explained that the children, especially the younger ones, should take more care when ordering their foods. We encouraged them to look at the menu each morning with their parents and to help them pick a meal that they would prefer. Finally, we asked the class teachers to spend more time each morning reading out the menu to help some children who may have forgotten to speak to their parent about their food choice.
Okay, now I know as a teacher that sometimes when you talk to children, sometimes they don't listen. So when you went around the classes, do you think you made a difference? Did your class visits make a difference to the amount of food being wasted?
Yes, we noticed a big difference within a very short period. When we were weighing the food bag at the end of lunch, it was very much lighter. We also noticed that the children were more aware of food waste, as the younger children were showing us their clear trays and talking to us about it in the dinner hall.
So we know in our school that sometimes, especially the younger children, they'll bring a tray over to you, and sometimes it looks as if they haven't eaten very much. So rather than lecture them, how do you approach it with younger children?
We judge if the food is too much waste. If they haven't eaten enough, we speak to them kindly and encourage them to eat more. Maybe we also explain to them that they should choose something different the next time. If they are young people, we highlight that their mum and dad think they're having a full lunch at school and that they should tell them when they get home.
Well done. So what do we do if the amount of food waste begins to increase? So as you know, we sometimes weigh, well, we were during the initiative weighing the food, and sometimes we can judge if we've got better days or worse days, depending on how much food is wasted. So what do you do if the food waste is starting to increase?
Each term, the Waste Warriors visit every class to remind the children about food waste. This is organised by Mr McKenna, who oversees the Eco Committee. Our role is very important as it acts as evidence for the school when applying for our green flag for Eco Schools Scotland.
Thank you, Ellie. And finally, we'll move to Sinead. You ready, Sinead?
Yes.
Okay. So when the initial pilot for Waste Warriors programme finished within the school, we continued with the campaign because we know it's very important. How is it going, or how did it go after the initiative finished?
We were asked how successful the Waste Warriors had been, which we thought was very successful, and we wanted to keep doing it. We also highlighted some of our observations, such as what foods were not so popular and what foods weren't getting eaten. The visits were also very informative, as they would explain why certain items had to be in the menu and why the menu had to have a balance of food types.
Okay, thank you. And how have we developed Waste Warriors within our own school?
We knew it was successful and helped both the environment and the school. The Waste Warrior is really voluntary, as we do it for choice, as it gives us more responsibility. We help the staff clean up and sweep the tables, and the kitchen staff appreciate it. They always give us a wee treat for helping them finish.
And I know you like your little treats, Sinead, so good boy. And finally, Sinead, so today there is 4 of you, all primary 6s. And as you know, next year you'll be primary 7s and then beyond to secondary school. So how do we keep the initiative going in our school? How do we keep the focus? What do we do?
Towards the end of the school year, we'll select a group of current Lucky P5 children and train them to become the new Waste Warriors for the next year. They will then pass this on to their P5 classmates and explain the values of Waste Warriors and what to do to combat food waste.
Well done. Thank you, boys and girls. Just to finish off, just to say that it's been a brilliant initiative for us. The children have totally bought into it, as well as the parents, and we find that it has been successful in terms of children choosing their lunches on a daily basis. There is a reduction in waste. There are bad days, but we do speak to the younger children about that. Thanks to Anne and Isabel for been heavily involved with us, for supporting us, and it's been great to have other councils coming and asking us questions and learning from what we do. So it's been much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation. That was very interesting, and you seem to be doing some really great work helping to tackle and reduce waste there. Can I ask for any questions, comments? Sorry, Anne is coming in first.
Sorry, I was going to carry on with the presentation, but if you...
No, that's fine.
Oh, my mic. Mr. McKenna and our Waste Warriors. The background into the initiative was following the climate emergency training, a cross-resource working group involving ourselves in facilities, education and waste services were formed to look at food waste in primary schools. And the aim of the group was really just to, and the aims were to encourage the pupils to eat more from their plates, find out why the pupils were leaving food from their meals, assist with the cost of living crisis, and create a greater awareness in education for children and young people, given greater responsibility to ensure that waste is disposed of correctly. It was a focus for our catering employees to consider food waste that they may have, and it also involved the waste officers going in to do classroom talks to talk about the waste journey in South Lanarkshire. The Waste Warrior programme, it started off as a pilot at Bankhead, Kirkland Park, Robert Smiley, St Vincent's and Carnwath primary schools, and they participated in a 6-week programme working with the catering team, recording and analysing the data. This was followed up by a further 21 schools that volunteered to take part and made 3 continual rollouts thereafter. This initiative has sparked creativity across schools. Some pupils have formed a gardening club at Carnwath Primary School. There's been a composting group started at Kirchenholm Primary School, along with a focus at school assemblies. The outcomes of the project are as follows. It's been an enjoyable, fun experience with the pupils taking a proactive approach to being involved. There's been changes and a focus on menu items and products that have resulted in higher food waste. Our cooks in charge have been considering the quantity of certain foods that they're cooking to reduce waste, and there's been a greater awareness and confidence on the benefits of reducing food waste. Our food waste data shows the importance of a focus on waste and continual engagement to maintain the improvements. And there's been a development of an education learning pack, which I'll come back to. Looking at some of the outcomes, the focus on the food waste items, having identified vegetables from the food waste autopsies as one of the areas of high food waste, it became an area for development as it forms a crucial part of a children's diet, and it's also a requirement under the Food and Drink in Schools Scotland regulations. There should be 2 portions of vegetables and fruit must be available daily as part of the lunchtime offering. Firstly, we looked at the procurement of the items and scrutinised to prevent counter waste. And secondly, we had a launch of our Keep Calm and Carrot On eating vegetables. The cooks in charge were asked to use their creativity to present vegetables in a fun and appealing way. And this was supported by our Go Fresh Club poster, highlighting the health benefits of each vegetable, along with some interesting facts. We also had the waste analysis. The study demonstrated that the waste reduction is achievable with targeted efforts. By implementing specific strategies and closely monitoring their impact, the study revealed variation in data across schools, particularly due to unavoidable waste items included in the figures. For example, apple cores, peelings, skins, and the uptake of certain items varied across different schools. This made it difficult to track actual waste, and it can vary upon what items are on the menu in any particular week. The data shown in table 4.6 in the report, it was clear that where schools had a key focus in an integrated programme and initiatives in their routine operations, they experienced a sustained reduction. The pilot also observed schools with a temporary positive impact on reducing food waste. And this has been a key learning point. And to counter this, an education learning resource pack has been developed to ensure sustainability of the project beyond the 6-week focus period. Some of the other initiatives across the service focusing on food waste are our Still Fresh initiative. Facility services operate a pre-ordering lunch service across all schools and nurseries. Therefore, kitchen and counter waste is minimal. However, to support a sustainable and consistent way to reduce any leftover foods, several initiatives are underway. There is photographs of the various projects in Appendix A in the report, but just very briefly on the different initiatives. So we have the Still Fresh initiative in the high schools, where cold pre-packaged food left unsold at the end of service is passed on safely to pupils and employees to take at no cost from our Stay Fresh station fridge, which is located in a designated area of the school. This initiative also ties in with the objectives of Education Resources Cost of the School Day policy. This initiative has been rolled out into HQ up in our coffee shop upstairs, and we have introduced a fridge which is positioned at the back of the staff restaurant, and it will hold unsold cold items to be taken at no cost. Also within our early years establishments in our nurseries, following service, any cold unserved foods are packaged and held in a fridge for early year staff to manage and distribute as appropriate. And the final initiative, and Ellie spoke about it when she was talking about it, about what's on the menu and how it looks is quite important to the children. And as part of our annual menu change, as a service, we produce and print pictorial menu packs which show all the pictures of all the dishes that are on the menu to allow the children to see what the food looked like before they make that selection. And this is across our 126 primary schools. So as a part of to move to a digital process and reducing paper processes, a pilot has been developed where a presentation of the menu pack is on a split screen function in the parent pay system. So this will allow the pictorial menu to be shown at the same time as where the selection panel is for the children to select their choice. The next steps are outlined in the report, but I would like to draw your attention to the Education Resources Fighting Against Food Waste teaching pack. A further development this week has been that the Waste Warrior programme has been added to the new planner, which sits in the SLC Curriculum Hub under the section of sustainable education, and this can be accessed by all educators in South Lanarkshire. The curriculum map was launched earlier in April and many schools are already using this. So please let me take you back to point 2 of the report, the recommendations. So I ask that committee approve that the progress and updates of food waste initiatives be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Again, we'll turn to questions and comments on that. Right. We'll start online with Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Just to thank the children in the school for their presentation. Very encouraging and positive and very current, of course. Young people there, I was there myself at the council in 1973, first People Council, and I came back, of course, years later, and I hope to see these people back as well. What I learned there was the portion size is important. I think we've got to look at that, and they brought that back. The choice is very important in presentation, like presenting vegetables in an amusing way, colourful way, whatever. If it encourages more people to eat, that's positive. So thanks once again to the school there, and keep up the good work, and I hope to see you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody want to respond to that at all? Or is that fine? No. Okay, Councillor Hamilton, please.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to, it's more a comment than a question, but I just wanted to thank the Waste Warriors for coming along. It's really good when pupils come along and give us ideas and shows what's been happening in their schools. As a parent of a 4-year-old, then that's given me loads of ideas, because food waste is bad in our house, so especially around vegetables. So I'm really pleased to see what's happening in schools and nurseries as well around making it more exciting for the kids to eat vegetables. But thank you so much. You've given me lots of ideas to go away and have a chat to my wee one about, and well done for coming along today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Next, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Anne for the now. This one seems to be working a bit better. But yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Anne, for the report, and thank you very much to Mr. McKenna and our Waste Warriors. You certainly all look very smart. You spoke very well. You actually put some of us councillors to shame. I think you should be giving us some public speaking lessons. You're all, a credit to yourselves and to your school. There's a lot of good stuff in this report. I think it's really good that we're giving pupils kind of ownership of this project and getting them involved as much as possible, because it's a benefit to them, and obviously in reducing our food waste. So I would welcome very much what's in the report and what we're doing in that regard. Obviously, there's a big focus on education in our schools, and quite rightly so. High source of food waste. But one question I would ask of officers is, what are some of the other things we're doing in our other council buildings? Obviously, they might be a bit less of a focus, but I think it's still good to keep updated in that. And actually, one question I would actually like to ask the Waste Warriors, if I may, and it's something I think I already know the answer to. But did you guys enjoy the project?
Yeah, I think we all did, because it is a really good experience, because I think at school, primary 7s get most of the responsibility, but as primary 6 senior pupils, it is a good idea to give the primary 6s some responsibility to prepare for primary 7.
Anne Goody.
Thanks for your question. Building, the same problem as yourself. In relation to the other buildings, obviously in facilities, it's schools and welfare, and one of the areas that we do is pre-ordering. That's really key that we're not overproducing. We also have sales mix forms that our cooks in charge and our catering managers up the stairs complete. So we look at that, and as I say, the Still Fresh initiative. In terms of what we are doing, we're happy to share with our colleagues in leisure and the other areas where catering happens. It was just in response to your comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Okay, thank you. And next question. Councillor Equity, please.
Thanks, Chair. I would just echo the same sentiments as Councillor Clark, and also to say that I fully agree with the fact that the public speaking and the level of confidence from the children is absolutely fantastic. So that in itself lets me know, Mr. McKenna, what a fantastic job your school's doing to produce children of this level. The other thing that I wanted to say was that with regards to the Waste Warriors, so I know we've done a pilot, and then I know then basically there was like another 20% of schools that were brought on. What is our timescale so that it basically covers like all of the schools? So I was looking for the timescale for the Waste Warriors in all of the schools. The other thing that I wanted to know was basically with regards to the green flag. From this initiative, this will obviously help the green flag. So it was just to actually get up-to-date numbers of how many of our schools have got the green flag. And the other thing was, it was brilliant to hear that there was a compost group set up, because and also a gardening club, because the two of them work in so well together. Just wee things that I'd learned in the past from being involved with compost groups and gardening clubs was the compost groups are good for cutting down the waste, because you've got like your apple cores can go in there, as well as like, you know, your orange skins, eggshells and toilet roll holders, because we need our brown waste as well. And for the gardening club, they can take the seeds from the cores, any seeds from, like, you know, if there's like leftover tomatoes or whatever, they can just be planted straight into the ground. And obviously like same with the cucumbers. So it was just to say that how many schools have we also got numbers wise that do have the eco committees, and what can we basically like do to encourage all of the schools to have gardening clubs and compost groups, because I know it was a big thing before, and especially like, you know, highlighted in a good resource during COVID for basically like any of the children that were able to go to school during COVID at the times when obviously there was only like certain groups were actually like allowed to attend because of COVID. But there was a lot of good work done in the gardens then, because I remember basically like different teachers and head teachers talking about it. So if we could just get the figures on those things, then that would be great. Thank you.
Anne Goldie.
I could maybe tackle your first question, but I would maybe have to defer to education for the other two. In relation to the rollout, it was a voluntary programme. It's not enforced upon schools, but what we have done is it's now in the curriculum hub under sustainability. So it's now available for all schools, and it's about that promotion of that. So we have been working with education. When we first put out the initiative, it went out to all schools, and we got a big waiting list to say we would like to be involved. So there is a lot of interest out there. But for us, the key thing wasn't just to have a pilot and a pilot and a pilot. We wanted to have a pack so that this could be available for all schools. In the pack, it's got loads and loads of resources. It's from Zero Waste Scotland, so there's loads of tips and hints about how to take it into the home and how to preserve things. So it's really, really a great pack. And from facilities, as I say, it's now packaged up as an education pack. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Lynn Shea is coming in as well.
Thank you very much. I can answer a few more of those questions there for you. In terms of the green flag, the number is 45. That was reported at the last committee. I think I remember seeing a paper recently, and I'm being told by my colleague here there'll be another update at a future committee. So it's 45 just now in terms of green flag status. In terms of composting and gardens, lots of our schools have that, primary and secondary. We actually have a little bit of funding within education. It was a grant, it was money that was given to us. And one of the things we were talking about recently was on the back of the Waste Warriors was looking at more composting, because we knew in some of the rural areas waste uplift doesn't happen. They don't generate enough that they would get a pickup, and composting would be the way to go, but possibly for some of the bigger schools as well. So our thoughts were using some of the money for that to promote the composting, particularly when they've finished the Waste Warriors projects as well. The other things about eco committees and other things that they're doing in schools. We are hosting a Learning for Sustainability curriculum conference in November for teachers across early years, primary, secondary and ESN. And again, we had a meeting about planning for that, and our thoughts were that post-Christmas we would likely do a survey to our schools to ask them about some of the things that they have been involved in, both curriculum side and these additional projects, which have a learning theme to them, but sometimes are initiatives out with school and linking in with communities, etc., to try and get a better handle on the volume of some of the things that are happening out there. So maybe later on in the year, again, we could bring something back to committee. If we wanted to do that, we could round up on some of the other initiatives this year and get some of the numbers for these bits of piece of information that you're looking for.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Equity?
It answers most of them, to be honest with you. So thanks for jumping in, Lynn. All of that is all good. And basically, I've noted the 45 down for the green flag. And it was just basically like, I suppose, still to get the numbers for the gardening clubs, the compost groups and the eco committees. And then it means we would then be able to see how well this committee is running and what else this committee needs to do to then help the other resources take things forward to make sure that we are satisfying and helping the council tick all their boxes and also actually make a difference rather than just be carbon capture. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Gowland.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd just like to congratulate the Waste Warriors on their work and thank them for coming in. I was due to see the work that they were doing in my role as the food champion, but it was cancelled due to the pre-election rules. So I would just like to say I look forward to the children helping us with our climate change priorities in the council and help us move forward with all the things that we need to do. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon online. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Right, okay, no problem. Thanks, Chair, and good morning, everybody. I wanted to say a huge thank you, first of all, to the Waste Warriors from St Vincent's for telling us about your experiences. It's always really great to hear from young people at committee, and well done on your work. I really liked hearing you talk about sensitively talking to some of the wee ones, to talking to primary ones, and trying to encourage them to try something new, because the dining hall can be quite a big and overwhelming experience and space for them, and you're obviously great role models for them. And it's good to hear you've got plans for passing over your hard work to younger pupils as well, so that they can take over. I've got a couple of questions for Anne on the wider presentation, Chair. First of all, I remember the first paper on this pilot project coming to committee, so thanks for coming back with an update on that. And when you look at some of the statistics that are on page 11, I mean, they really are quite stark, like 100 kilos of waste a week, 20 kilos a day for one establishment really is a considerable amount. So it's great to see that 3 of the schools in this pilot saw a sustained reduction here. So I've got 2 questions. I wanted to ask about school 4 and 5 on page 11. What was the time frame of the drop-off here between the pilot and the post-pilot periods where the waste was increasing again? And second question, I can see also on page 11, and we've been told today that this resource pack is available and schools will be able to access it. I just wondered if any thought's been given to some sort of middle ground between the wonderful sort of all singing, all dancing approach that we've seen described today, and then just a pack, maybe scope for something like a periodic check-in or occasional event in schools that have said they're going to take this forward, a reward visit, something like the exotic fruit cart coming to, you know, if you're doing well, or to kickstart your event, just to sort of keep things ticking over rather than just a resource that's sitting there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I'll hand over to Anne. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Loudon, for your comments. The drop-off period for school, the monitoring period for School 4 and School 5 was 6 weeks after. So we ran the pilot for 6 weeks, and then we monitored the waste for the 6 weeks for 6 weeks following that, and that was the time frame. In relation to the pack, as I say, we've got some good news this week that the pack's now on to the sustainable section for education, and we are in discussions about promoting how do we keep that going. You picked up from the report, we work with our fruit and veg supplier who come out and do visits. So following on from that, we've had our Keep Calm and Carrot on Eating Vegetables. We're looking at further programmes involving the supplier to go out and work with the schools. One area has been the fruit and vegetables that's getting left, generating a lot of the waste. So we've brought them in, but it's ongoing. It hasn't just stopped. We continue to meet with education. We've got the resource pack so that all schools can get involved, and we are still engaging with the schools. So it hasn't stopped. So I hope that gives you a bit of encouragement. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that answer your point, Councillor Loudon?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think things like that are really important, especially if it's a school that are just starting off on this journey. I think something like an event or a supplier coming in would be a really good way of getting things going and getting some more interest from the wider school community about what's going on as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Kirsten, Councillor.
I think this is the last one. Thanks so much, Waste Warriors, and all the support from Mr. McKenna and the school as well. That was brilliant. Hopefully you'll be sitting here in 10 years' time. So just a quick point, I think initiatives like this, Waste Warriors, they really highlight about sustainability, because it covers the health aspects, it covers the waste aspects. It can save money by reducing waste as well, and if you're composting, creates a product as well. So I think it's really good to bring it to this committee, because it's sustainability in action as well, covers all the different sides of sustainability. Just picking up on the composting side, if we've got any of those hot composters left that were ordered a few years ago, maybe some of the rural schools might benefit from some of those that are, if there's still a few left over. I believe there was 50 or so. From a previous initiative. Final question is on behalf of a nursery that are going for their green flag, what happens to the waste, food waste, after it leaves the school? They wanted to know how it was processed and if there's any products produced as part of that. Thank you.
Anne? Yeah.
We do have an excellent video from our waste awareness officers. So if you let me know the details, we can get them in, and it shows the waste journey and where it goes. I'm not from waste, and that's as much as I can tell you about that, but there is a great resource, and as part of the Waste Warrior programme, we have the waste awareness officers as well. Thank you.
Kevin Carr.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor Rob. So the food waste collected by our waste contractor, and it's processed in an anaerobic digestion facility. So food waste goes in and compost still comes out. It's just composted a different way because it's food waste. It needs to be done at a different temperature, and that's about as far as my technical knowledge on an AD facility goes. But it's a usable product that comes out the other end.
Okay, that's fine, and thanks, Anne. I'll follow up on that. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Councillor Equi again.
Chair, sorry, it was actually just something that Katie had said I wanted to address. Katie had brought up about the visits to the school. I actually think that's a great idea, but I was thinking about with regards to the procurement. So it's just so for the people that we procure, the items for that then go into the schools. I wondered if that was something then that we could actually set up, because lots of them will have different things, whether it's a smoothie bike or something else like that that they can take in, and then it means that there's further engagement. And I think that it also puts an onus onto the people that are putting themselves forward to basically sell the goods to us, that it means that they need to be taking all these things into account as well. So is that something that we can actually look at doing formally to approach the companies in our procurement, to see if they can actually come up with basically ways that they can actually help the schools?
Anne Goldie.
Hi, thanks, Councillor, for your question. It is included within the food procurement when we set the strategy documents to go out to tender, and also working with national contracts under community benefits. So there is lots of things that do happen. We got involved in the Eco Day, the Education Run for all schools. We had Muller there. They have a huge Daisy the cow that they bring along to and it educates the kids of where the milk comes from. They get an opportunity to milk a cow. We have Carruthers, our fruit and veg supplier, who comes along with carts. We have got a pizza supplier who has a big Italian cart who comes along to our high schools. So there's lots of different things that do happen. They are included as part of community benefits. We do ask when we are procuring what they can offer, and we do utilise them and offer these out and use the opportunity when things are happening in schools to get involved.
Chair, just to say, that's fantastic. I didn't know that we did that. So I'm really pleased to hear it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't think there are any more questions. So this is an item for noting. So can we agree that we note that? Thank you. So we'll move now to item. Before we go, the children, I think, are going to leave us now, and they will be taking a tour of the building. So can we all thank them very much for their time here and their contribution. Okay, so item 4 on the agenda is approval of forthcoming public bodies climate change duties 2023-2024 report, and that's on pages 19 to 22 of the pack. So I'd like to invite Adam Wallace to speak to this report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to present the timetable for reporting of South Lanarkshire Council's forthcoming Public Bodies Climate Change Duties Compliance Report for 23-24, as legally required under the Climate Change Scotland Act 2009. Section 3 provides some background to this report. The statutory framework for climate action and reporting is outlined by the Climate Change Scotland Act 2009 and the Climate Change Public Duties Scotland Act. Section 44 of Part 4 of the Act states that a public body must act in a way that is best calculated to contribute to the delivery of Scotland's national emissions reductions targets, in the way best calculated to help deliver Scotland's statutory climate change adaptation programme, and in a way that it considers is most sustainable. Public bodies are required to prepare and publish annual reports on their compliance with these duties and submit these reports to the Scottish Government. Each year, the Council has complied with these duties, and the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee approves the Public Bodies Climate Change Duties Report, which is then published on the Council's website and submitted to the Scottish Government by the due date of the 30th of November each year. Due to the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee timetable this year, however, it is not possible to present the full report to this committee prior to submission. Instead, it is proposed that the report will be submitted for approval at the Council's Executive Committee meeting on the 13th of November 2024 and presented to the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee for noting on the 18th of December 2024. The report will have a similar format to previous years and is based on a template issued by the Scottish Government. It contains 6 sections detailed in the table at section 4.2, and these sections cover the profile of the reporting body, governance, management and strategy, emissions, targets and projects, adaptation, procurement and validation. A letter from the Cabinet Secretary for Net Zero and Energy to all local authorities was received in May 2024, stressing the importance of the public body's climate change duties reporting. A series of workshops have been held with both the Climate Change and Sustainability Steering Group and Officers Group to ensure the Council's full compliance with the duties and help identify areas for improvement. The workshops included a session using the Zero Waste Scotland Climate Change Assessment Tool, designed to assist public sector organisations comply with the Climate Change Scotland Act, and a review of the Council's targets, strategies and governance using the Sustainable Scotland Network's Climate Emergency Checklist. The results and improvement actions identified from both these sessions will be reported in the Public Sector Duties Report. Sections 5 and 6 outline the employee and financial implications. Section 7 details the climate change, sustainability and environmental implications. These include the Council's Sustainable Development and Climate Change Strategy, which outlines the action to meet our climate change duties. Work undertaken by the Council in line with this strategy ensures that we comply with our duties, and the strategy has undergone a full strategic environmental assessment. In terms of other implications, the annual statutory reporting requirements do have implications for all resources. However, some services will be more involved than others, and those services are detailed at section 8.1. Furthermore, failure to meet sustainable development and climate change objectives is one of the top risks for the Council. Section 9 details the relevant quality impact assessment and consultation arrangements. And finally, to just refer you back to Section 2 for the recommendations, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the Council's Public Bodies Climate Change Duties Compliance Report for 23-24 be presented for approval at the Executive Committee on the 13th of November 2024, and that the Council's Public Bodies Climate Change Duties Compliance Report be presented for noting to the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee on the 18th of December 2024. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have any questions, comments on that? John Anderson, Councillor John Anderson.
I'm just wondering why this report is going to the executive first, who approve it, and then come into this committee for noting. Why is the report not ready for this committee today so that we could have a look at it first? Because once it comes back to us, it's only for noting. We can't recommend in or change in after it's approved. It just seems a bit the other way. I mean, it's a 23-24 report, so I'd imagine all the information is there. And I'm surprised that the report's not prepared for this committee to make any recommendations or alterations to it before it goes to the executive. It just seems that we're just going to then sit and discuss something that's already been decided.
Adam Wallace.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. So usually the report is ready for this committee to scrutinise, but just unfortunately with the timing of the timetable and of the committees this year, we weren't able to get it ready. Some of the data that we do include in that report isn't available until, and it was only available in August, is it? Yeah, some of the data isn't available in August, and obviously I have to have the papers prepared in advance of this committee, so there just wasn't time to have it prepared for this committee. But we will have it for the Executive Committee, and then it will be reported for noting at the next Climate Change and Sustainability Committee. Hopefully the timetable for next year will allow us to present it here first.
Councillor Henderson, does that satisfy you?
Yeah, in a way, but I mean, if the information was available in August and we're now into October and the report's not ready, I just think that better coming to us first. But if a time frame isn't right and we get it next year before it goes to executive, then that's fine.
So we have no other questions, so I will propose that we agree this report and the points that to agree that the Council's Public Bodies Climate Change Duties Compliance Report for 2023-24 be presented for approval to the Executive Committee on the 13th November 2024, following which a compliance report will be presented for noting to this committee, the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee, on the 18th of December 2024.
Second that.
And, are we all agreed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to item 5 on the agenda, which is the Carbon Management Year-End Report for 2023-2024, and that's on pages 23 to 30 of your pack. Could I ask Catherine McCafferty to speak to this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update the committee on the year-end carbon management position for financial year 23-24. Section 3 of the report provides the policy background and notes that on the 5th of September this year, the Climate Change Emissions Reductions Target Scotland Bill was published. The bill seeks to amend the Climate Change Scotland Act 2009 in response to the Climate Change Committee's advice that Scotland's interim emissions reductions targets for 2030 were beyond what could be achieved. While the target of net zero emissions by 2045 will not be changed, the Scottish Government is seeking to establish 5-yearly carbon budgets which are based on the Climate Change Committee's recommendations. Section 4 of the report outlines the Council's carbon footprint for the year 2023-24. It reports an emissions reduction of 68.9% from the baseline year of 2005, and it reports that there has been a 9.46% reduction in carbon emissions compared to the previous year of 2022-23. Sections 4.6 to 4.10 explain in detail the reasons for these reductions from the reported carbon sources. For our council buildings, gas consumption decreased by 7.3% and electricity consumption also decreased by 6%. For waste, there's been a significant carbon reduction in the previous financial year of 31%. This is mainly due to the increased amounts of waste going to the energy from waste facility and an increase in the household recycling rate. For fleet, there has been an 11.2% reduction of emissions from fleet in the previous year. Now, this accounts for petrol and diesel vehicles, and this is mainly due to a decrease in the fleet size and the procurement of 50 modern commercial vehicles. For staff travel, which includes the electric pool cars, this has increased by 8.5%. There's been a greater use of the electric pool cars in the year, with an extra 300,000 miles reported across 2022-23, or compared with 2022-23. This shows that journeys in petrol and diesel vehicles have fell and that the electric vehicle use has actually increased, so that's a good sign. For street lighting, emissions from street lighting have increased by 6.6%. While the electricity consumed fell slightly in the year, the carbon conversion factor for electricity increased. As noted in section 4.4, the national carbon conversion factors for electricity, gas and waste are published yearly by the UK Government Department for Energy Security and Net Zero and are used to calculate the Council's carbon emissions. Section 5 of the report details the next steps, which include a target to reduce emissions as much as possible compared with previous years for this current financial year. And we've also reported that the sustainability team are working with resources to develop a report which takes a longer view of council services meeting national carbon reduction targets. This report will outline the new national carbon reduction targets and legislation and the next steps required to reduce carbon emissions in the medium to long term. All the standard implications are noted in sections 6 to 10, including the input is required from all resources to contribute to carbon reduction targets, and also the significant financial implications to achieving national net zero targets. If I can refer you back to section 2 of the covering report, the committee is asked to note the final year-end position with respect to South Lanarkshire Council's carbon emissions for the year 2023-24. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. I think this is There's some very good progress reported here, and I think officers should get praise for the work they've done to produce that. Can I ask if there's any questions or comments? Councillor Equi, please.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Excellent report, very informative. I just wanted to ask a question though, and it was to do with when the officer had talked about the reduction of the council's carbon emissions. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't falling into the same trap that we had with the previous item. So, see the figures that have been used in this report, are they the correct figures? It's not a simple case of that there needs to be an amendment made to them, you know, for like moving forward. Because I think that it needs to be like clarified that all the figures that are in there are the figures that should, because I know obviously the previous report has financial implications. So can it be confirmed that this report is as is and it has all the figures that it should, that it's listed, that there's nothing else that's going to get added in at a later date? Because as was correctly pointed out the last item, things that come to this committee should be signed off at this committee before they go to the executive. So can somebody confirm that for me, please?
David Booth.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Councillor Equi. In reference to the previous agenda item, there wasn't anything inaccurate with the information within that. I think what was explained is that the way the information is collated and gathered, the information was not all available at the time to meet the timetable for this particular committee, given the committee timetable this year, which is why that was being referred to the executive committee. So it was the way the information is gathered from a range of different sources and is made available. In terms of this carbon management report, this information is all available in this report and is accurate as far as officers are concerned. Thank you.
Councillor Equi, are you satisfied with that response?
No, Chair, can I just ask David something, just because I am actually like slightly confused with this? So when I made reference to the previous report, it was because that, yeah, I knew that there was different sources that the information had to be gathered from, but did I hear the gentleman then incorrectly that it wasn't a case that there was other things that should have been put into the report that then was going to be amended at a later date for it going to the executive? So does that mean that the last report as is will be exactly as it is and has been basically passed today? So there isn't any amendments at the executive if all the information that was meant to be in it was actually correct and present? I'm slightly confused, and I'm sorry, David, but it's just so that you can basically put me in the right path and allay my fears.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Equi. No, I think what we were saying with the last report, there wasn't any information within that report that was inaccurate. The information that goes into the previous report, which gets submitted to the Scottish Government, comes from a range of different sources. All of the information was not available from those sources in time for that committee report to come to this committee. Before we would send that report on to the Scottish Government, we would need to make sure that the Council had seen all of the information in order that we were presenting information that had been agreed by committee, which is why we're putting that to the Executive Committee, which is the next appropriate committee that's available to present that full range of information that will complete our submission. So it's not the information will be amended, it's just not all the information was not available at this stage. We're bringing information we have to this committee, we'll take it to the Executive Committee, and then we'll refer it back to this committee for note in December. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Chair, can I ask something else, please, of David, of what he's just said? So that means then that this report, right, which is on the carbon management, none of the figures on this are basically going to change because of the last report. So it means this report will stay exactly the same. And then it means that when it's the carbon management report, which is 24-25, that means that that will then have that's when the previous item would have the knock-on effect of the carbon management.
Yeah, so we're talking about, this is the same year, but we're talking about two entirely different reports here. So this report is the information in this report is the carbon management information for the year 23-24. So this is a different report. It's used for a different purpose, and this is us reporting on the carbon emissions for 23-24, and we have all of the information up to date and contained within this actual report that's in front of us. The previous report, as I said, involved other information, a range of information which was within that report, and that is going to a different audience in terms of its submission to the Scottish Government. But this carbon management year-end report has all of the information available within the report in order for the committee to make a decision on it today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, David.
Thank you. Councillor Mars next.
Thank you, Chair. Relating to 3.2 and 3.4 of this report, and with cognisance to the Climate Change Scotland Act 2009, that states that a public body must exercise its functions in the way best calculated to contribute to the delivery of Scotland's national emissions reduction targets, and in accordance with the now active Consumer Duty guidance and the due to become active Consumer Duty Act 2020, I would suggest a change to the parameters for this report for carbon footprint from employee travel to consumer travel, and including scope 3 for that change, given that relates to emissions relating to procurement for goods and services from a third party, and would potentially include all our consumers, not just employees.
David Booth. Oh, no, sorry. Catherine.
Hi, Councillor. The parameters for the carbon footprint have been set quite a few years back. We are working with the Scottish Government. They've set up a climate intelligence service, and we are looking at scope 3 emissions and how they should be measured for local authorities. There is going to be guidance going through Parliament in the next few months, and we'll have a look at that guidance and we'll follow that for scope 3 emissions. So as I think it states in the report, our carbon footprint can change, and it'll take effect, and we'll look at the legislation and what we have to include in it, and we'll follow that Scottish Government guidance when it's available. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mars, does that answer your question?
Thank you, Chair. I believe the guidance is already active and places an expectation on local authorities to act as if the Act were fully active in the meantime, until it is. So I think in the meantime we are to expect to make policy and consider our decisions relating to consumers rather than any particular subset of that, including employees. So I think it would be right and proper for this report to have the parameters changed going forward to take cognizance of that.
Catherine McCafferty.
This report is for the council's carbon footprint, and we do kind of report on two things. So we have the council's carbon footprint as an organisation, and then there's area-wide emissions. So they aren't included in this report. This report is purely for the council's carbon footprint, and there will be more guidance, like I say, coming forward from the Scottish Government regarding procurement, etc., and how we should be reporting on this. And what they're looking at is a sort of standardised approach across all the local authorities. So, like I say, the sustainability team have been sitting on the Climate Intelligence Service, which the Scottish Government run, and they are providing sort of guidance so that all councils can be reporting the same way. So this report is purely for our organisational emissions rather than our area-wide emissions.
Thank you. Councillor Mars, does that answer?
In some senses, yes, and I'm grateful for the answer. I still would. It seems incongruous to consider employee carbon footprint and not all the other users of council services, and I make no apology for considering the use of of school children getting to school, and they are expected to go to a place of work in the same way as an employee, although they're not paid, but they don't have a choice in where they partake of that work, and so their carbon footprint, I think, would be fair to be considered.
David Booth.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Councillor Marsh. Your points are all well made. I think, as we pointed out, as Catherine has pointed out, this report is particular to the council's emissions. There is other work, and we're reporting on the area-wide emissions, and as officers have pointed out, we're in a constant liaison with the Scottish Government in terms of the correct way to report on that, that will be consistent, hopefully, across all local authority areas. So those points you make are absolutely valid, but in this particular report, we're reporting on the council's emissions. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've been over most of the key points here enough. Councillor Robb would like to say something now.
Just on the apologies, thank you. Yep, on area-wide dimensions, look forward to future work on that, and looking at decisions, policies and projects that we make as a council, how our decisions that we make are influencing those area-wide emissions, which I've raised in the past before. Coming back to this report, 4.6.3, just to thank the officers for the report and look at the difference that in reduction in energy consumption or electricity consumption that the work on solar PV systems, voltage optimisers and upgrading lighting via the SEEF programme has made, and to thank the administration for including extra money in the budget last year or this coming year that will make a difference on that in future years, and to just encourage more of that, please, because it's about an investment and it saves money and it saves electricity in future years as well. So hopefully that will have a knock-on effect on future years too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we'll move now to...
Chair, I've got my hand up.
Yeah, we've covered most of the points.
No, I haven't covered my points, Chair. I'm terribly sorry. So if I could be allowed to speak, I would greatly appreciate it.
Is it a new point?
Well, it's a point that I'm raising, Chair, if that's what you mean. I'm not understanding.
Well, new as in something we haven't already discussed.
Chair, am I allowed to speak?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So it's in regards to the councils and then the area-wide commissions. I'm happy for this report to stay as is and for there to be an area-wide emissions report as well. But I have to basically agree with Julia that as a council, we have our own officers, you know, we have our own elected members, you know, we're here to basically put what we think, because that's what we're elected to do, forward for what's actually best for everybody. And it's just like, I think that what Julia's, if I'm allowed to speak in your behalf, Julia, what Julia was getting across and what I'm trying to get across is that I agree with what Julia said, and I think that that then needs to then go to our officers. So when our officers are then basically speaking on our behalf as elected members on this committee, that they actually are saying to the Scottish Government, when this has been formulated and whatever else, and we're all doing best practice, of how we believe in South Lanarkshire that it should be. But so that's for one thing that I would like the officers to take away, and I greatly appreciate the report. It's well written and it's fantastic. But the other point that basically I would make is that Julia is correct. It's just like for it coming to this committee, you know, I would like to see what the actual figure is. So it's, you know, it's like it shouldn't be that for us as elected members that we've got one report here and one report there, and then we have to like work out how they then basically marry together. That's something that the officers should be pulling together for us, so that we can, you know, so it's not like a tick box for us. It's actually that we know what our figures are, so that we are getting educated by the officers who are like pulling this information together. So, and like, you know, if the officers are saying, oh no, everything's set in stone and we can't change the report, that's fine, I fully accept that. But it then means that there should be another report that then comes together that actually gives us the full figure, because at the end of the day, that should, you know, basically it should all be captured in the one report. I don't see why, if it has to be legislative that there's two reports and they have to be separate, I'm totally fine with that. But basically, we should actually have all the figures together. And unless somebody can tell us why that's an unreasonable suggestion, then how is it we then take this forward? Is it, you know, does I propose something? Does Julia propose something? Or is it something that we just can agree that it's something that we actually need to look at, so that we are actually, you know, basically doing our elected duty and actually, you know, being allowed to actually question these things?
David Booth.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Councillor Ickaway. So the council reports on carbon in two ways. It reports on the wider carbon across South Lanarkshire, and reports on South Lanarkshire Council's carbon emissions. The carbon it reports on that wider landscape, it doesn't have complete control over every element of that. But it can, has been pointed out, it can influence the carbon. What it does have as a council, we have control over the carbon that we emit as a council. So, as I think it's been long established in this committee in terms of that we report on the council's carbon emissions that the council has direct control over, in order that elected members can understand that the journey that the council is taking towards net zero. And where we are able to reduce carbon and where it is difficult to do so, in order to help influence and inform decisions that the committee and other committees make within the council. So that's why we report specifically on the council's carbon management, and that's what this report is about. As I pointed out, in terms of Councillor Marr's comments, the comments are well made and are accepted in terms of our discussions with the Scottish Government and how we would be expected, as would other councils, to be expected to report on those wider area carbon figures. And that would be reported to this committee as well. It's just not reported in this report, it's reported in a separate report. And that is the way that it's always been. Thank you.
Thank you. So can we now move to approve that? I think it's a matter for noting. So are we all agreed to note that? Thank you. So next we move on to item 6, South Lanarkshire Council Climate Week 2024. That's on pages 31 to 38 of your pack. Can I please ask Gemma Dodds to speak to this report?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide committee with an update on the work undertaken by South Lanarkshire Council in support of Climate Week 2024. I refer you to section 3 of the report, which provides background information relating to Climate Week. In June 2024, in a letter to South Lanarkshire Council's Chief Executive, the Scottish Government Cabinet Secretary for Net Zero and Energy confirmed Climate Week 2024 was to take place between the 23rd and 29th of September, and encouraged public sector organisations to get involved. Public sector organisations were encouraged to help deepen understanding, underline the impact of collective action, and encourage further progress to help Scotland transition to net zero. Aligning with the themes of Climate Week, the Council's sustainability team planned a programme of engagement initiatives that were delivered primarily during Climate Week, but also throughout the month of September to maximise reach and impact. The Council's Climate Week programme was scheduled and coordinated by the sustainability team in collaboration with the Council's communications team and other services across the Council, with input from key external stakeholders. During Climate Week, the Council implemented a range of activities. These are fully outlined in section 5 of the report. The programme ensured that a wide range of audiences, including residents, community groups, local businesses and council employees, as well as young people, third sector, South Lanarkshire school communities and residents across the Central Belt were engaged through various channels and events. The initiatives included South Lanarkshire View articles showcasing 5 community climate projects, active social media engagement on Facebook, X and LinkedIn promoting the success of the Climate Emergency and Resilience Fund and supporting climate action. The same social media channels were used to encourage the South Lanarkshire community to share their stories for change and promote local events, including the Lanarkshire Climate Hub Climate Festival. The council also actively participated in South Lanarkshire College's an innovation event, engaging local businesses with opportunities to complete a free carbon baseline study. The creation of climate emergency training on Oracle Fusion was promoted to help enhance climate knowledge amongst South Lanarkshire Council employees. The council intranet was also utilised to raise awareness of Climate Week and highlight internal initiatives that are helping the council reduce emissions and act in the most sustainable way. National and local press releases were issued, showcasing South Lanarkshire as a green tourism destination. And on top of this, community conservation efforts were supported with the attendance of the Westburn Marsh Local Nature Reserve Conservation Day. Finally, youth climate action was encouraged at the attendance of the Junior Road Safety Officer event at Shatler Country Park. Reflecting on Climate Week has provided an opportunity to refocus attention on climate change and the environment by engaging with a wide and varied range of stakeholders across South Lanarkshire. The sustainability team will incorporate lessons learned from Climate Week into Sustainability Communications Plan. In section 9 of the report, it is highlighted that engaging in climate education and promotion helps the council meet multiple priorities outlined in the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Strategy, one of which is empowering communities to take climate action and be more environmentally sustainable. So I refer you back to section 2 of the paper and ask that the content of the report in respect to climate action initiatives during Climate Week 2024 is noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask if anybody has any questions or comments? Could Councillor Robb?
Thank you, and thank the team, the comms department and the sustainability team for the work you've done in Climate Week. As we all know, sustainability and climate change is a top risk of the council. It's in the council plan. We've all approved the strategy and so on. So wherever you are on the sustainability spectrum, I think you can't deny the many co-benefits of action on climate change, whether it's saving money, improving health, improving fitness, green jobs, putting money back in people's pockets. So I think the Climate Week work that you've done has really highlighted that, and hopefully people start to see the connections, kind of thinking globally but acting locally as well. And I would just encourage, I'm sure that that's going to continue, we've heard, and encourage all councillors to do the climate emergency training and sustainability so that you can help to see the connections between some of the global issues with what we can do here locally as well. So thank you. Maybe if you could just elaborate a bit more about how it will continue throughout the year, that would be brilliant. Thanks.
We're talking as a team about arranging a kind of comms calendar for the year ahead that will incorporate national strategies as well as local events.
Okay, I don't think there's any other questions or comments. So can we agree to note that report regarding the climate action initiatives during Climate Week 2024? Have we all agreed? Thank you. So item 7 is urgent business. I think Councillor Robb has one item in this.
Thanks very much for squeezing that in. Since the last meeting, we've heard about the cut for nature restoration funding, and that will cost it's £265,000 less for nature restoration. Understand that will affect seasonal workers at Langlands Moss, tree planting and signage at the new nature reserves. As a council, we've committed to, we've declared a nature emergency just this year. Can I ask some of the officers what our intention is now, that whether that money comes back or doesn't come back, how will we maximise internal and external resources to make sure we're continued to contribute towards our biodiversity strategy? Thank you.
Kevin Carr.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor Rob. It's a good question. As you know, over the last 3 years, we've done a lot of good work with the nature restoration funding. You know, it was 545,000 we received last year, and it's really helped us expand our local nature reserves and the green network. As you've outlined, we had a lot of work planned over the winter period. A lot of the funding we used to retain seasonals over the winter period, and they undertake a lot of the physical work that we do in our LNRs, as well as equipment and materials. Unfortunately, that's all been additional work that we've undertaken. It wouldn't have been work that we would have done, you know, within our current budget requirements or staffing requirements. So it's all been additionality. So unfortunately, as it stands at the moment, we won't be able to undertake the work that we had planned this winter period. However, the team is looking at whether there's other funding sources available that could maybe supplement, you know, what we would do over the winter period. But at the moment, that work's just going to have to be stood down. The Scottish Government's suggesting that the funding may be reinstated next year. Not quite clear what that means, whether we actually will receive this year funding again or it will just continue. Given the national budget position, I would suggest that even all of that's still uncertain at this point in time. So hopefully that answers your question.
I don't think we've got any other points on that. So can I thank everybody for attending this meeting, and I'll ask the clerk to stop the recording. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.